Hello, I'm Brad Smith, Course Coordinator for Supply Chain Management. Welcome to week 1 of the course. This week we focus on some very key terms, some fundamental concepts and definitions for supply chain management. And in particular, we focus on this concept of alignment of the supply chain strategy to the overall corporate strategy of the organisation. Successful organisations are very clear on their purpose. They know why they exist, they know who their customers are, and they know how to create value for all of their stakeholders. So that means not just the customer, but also the owners, the employees, and also the suppliers to the organisation. They understand that all of these stakeholders have to be deriving some value from the organisation. And increasingly, the supply chain strategy is a very important part of this value creation process. So in this unit, we look at corporate strategy more broadly. And to do that, we use the frameworks of Michael Porter. Now, I'm sure you've probably come across Michael Porter in other units. His frameworks, his concepts are very widely used. So by all means, if you've studied Porter and his frameworks before, feel free to skim over those sections of the notes. But I also introduced the concept of value shops and value chains as a way of looking at corporate strategy. Now, one of the criticisms of Michael Porter's framework was that it was very linear, value chain with incoming logistics, the transformation process, outbound logistics, with products and services flowing through. But a lot of organisations, particularly in the service sector, don't work in that way. I'm sure if you're involved with software development or consultancy, you might have trouble thinking about what is your inbound logistics. What is that value transformation process? It's often not quite as linear as Porter described. So the concept of value shops and value chains is introduced to give you another framework to look at these types of businesses. The next thing we look at is the concept of order qualifiers and order winners. This is simply looking at what is it that an organisation must do just to be involved in the industry, and then what is it that the organisation must do to start winning customer orders, customer patronage. For example, an organisation like Qantas operating in the air transportation industry, the order qualifier is simply safety. All organisations that operate in that industry have to have safety as their primary order qualifier, and if they don't have safety, then they won't operate at all. After that, they can start to think about what are the things that actually win customers. So this might be providing good in-flight entertainment, a nice in-flight menu, having staff that are helpful, polite and receptive, and so on. The next thing we look at is the concept of sustainability in the corporate strategy. All organisations operate in markets that are constantly changing, so no one corporate strategy can remain in place forever. All organisations have to be constantly updating their strategy, and because the supply chain is an important part of the overall corporate strategy, it's important that the supply chain is also changing. There's a very good reading at the end of this unit on the AAA supply chain. This reading talks about, firstly, the alignment of the supply chain to the corporate strategy, but secondly, the agility of that supply chain, so the ability of the supply chain to quickly adapt in the short term to changes in the marketplace as they occur. And lastly, the supply chain has to be adaptable. Over the long term, the ability to recognise that the market's changing and therefore to adapt the supply chain to suit the market is very important. And organisations that don't do this invariably find that they lose their sustainable competitive advantage. A good example of that is Dell Computers. Dell built their business on their online ordering system, which allowed customers to go online, specify the requirements of their computer that they would like to buy, and then have it directly delivered without any involvement of a retail network. But as the market changed, as PCs, laptops became cheaper and became a commodity product, Dell found that this corporate strategy was no longer relevant. So they changed, and they now, you'll find, have a retail network, and you can walk into numerous stores around the city and you'll find Dell computers sitting there alongside all of the other brands. So they are a good example of a company that has adapted their supply chain to meet the changing marketplace. This is the sort of thing that we'll be looking at in Unit 1. So I hope you enjoy it, and again, if there's any questions at all, feel free to contact me. Otherwise, we'll see you in Unit 2.